أفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم. Today is our first official lecture, so please, if you haven't viewed our introductory lecture, please do so. Today is our first official lecture. In today's lecture, we're going to discuss some beginning concepts in the study of psycholinguistics. So the first thing we are going to take is language versus speech, thought and communication. Then we are going to discuss signal and meaning. Then we are going to discuss linguistic creativity. Then we're going to discuss prescriptive versus descriptive grammar. And finally we will have a look at linguistic competence versus linguistic performance. So all the concepts taken today are essential terms which you need to know before studying psycholinguistics. These are necessary terms. I expect every one of you to be aware of these terms and to be aware of the differences between these pairs. For example, to be aware of the differences between language, speech, thought and communication. By the end of this lecture you should be aware of the difference between signal and meaning, the meaning of the term linguistic creativity. You should also be aware of the difference between prescriptive versus descriptive grammar, and you should be aware of the difference between linguistic competence and linguistic performance. So let's start with our first item for today's lecture, which is language, thought and communication. Let's start with this question: is the term language synonymous to the term speech? First, let's explain what does this question mean. We have two terms in this question. The first is language. For example, Arabic, English, Spanish. These are languages. Is the term language synonymous? Does it have the same meaning to the term speech? Now I would like to give you one moment to think about the question and try to figure out an answer. Is the term language synonymous to the term speech? If you answered yes, you are wrong, because speech is one form of language. So the answer is no. The answer to the question is no. Why? Because speech is one form of language. There are other forms such as writing and signals, that is sign language. These are called forms of language. So speech is just one form of language. There are other forms such as writing and signals or sign language. Okay, let's ask the second question. What about thought? Is it synonymous to the term language? So while you are thinking now, without uttering, without speaking, you are silent, you are thinking. Is this thinking called language? Let's look at the answer. The answer is no, because there are individuals such as infants, such as kids, babies. They can think. Of course they have thinking abilities, but they cannot produce language. Of course we are talking about infants under the age of 2 years. They can think, but they cannot produce language. So in this slide we have taken a quick look at the three terms: language, thought and communication, and of course speech. It is apparent to us now that speech is not synonymous. It doesn't completely have the same meaning as language. Why? Because speech is just one form of language. Language is more than just speaking. Language is about speaking, is about writing, is about sign language. These are called forms of language. In the second question we have taken thought, and I asked the question, is the term thought synonymous to the term language? Does it have the same meaning as language? The answer is no. Why? Because they are individuals. such as infants, who can think, they can think without any problems, but in the end they cannot produce language. So we can see here that there are differences between language, thought, communication, and speech. Language is just like the umbrella, which covers all these terms: speech, writing, sign language, etc. So if we can think of language, we can think of it as an umbrella which covers all these terms. Now let's move on to the next slide we have. Similarly, we can ask, are the terms language and communication synonymous? Now this is a bit tricky. Why? Because language is a form of communication. Now I think it is tricky to answer this question. Why? Because language is a form of communication. Now I would like you to think about an answer for this question. Are the terms language and communication synonymous? Do they have the same meaning or not? Okay, I will just give you one moment to think of an answer for this question. The answer is either yes or no. If you answered yes, you are wrong, and we are going to see why. Language is the primary communication system for human beings. Of course, it is the most commonly used among the other forms of communication. I'm speaking about language. It is the most commonly used form of communication, but of course there are other forms of communication between human beings, but it is not the only way to communicate. Okay, here we have examples of communication between humans. So those who put the signs are humans. They are communicating with us in one form which is not language. Here we have a sign when you are driving, or when you are on the street and you see these two signs. They give you a certain type of meaning, but they are not language. These two signs are not language. They are just signs, but still they are forms of communication. So on the left hand side we have a sign for people crossing the street. So whenever you see this sign, this gives you an indication that there are people who are crossing the street. On the right column, on the right sign, we have another sign which means no entry. So whenever you see this sign, it gives you a meaning, yet it is not language. These signs are not forms of language. They are just forms of communication. So communication and language, sometimes they have something to do in common, and sometimes they are not. Sometimes language, most of the time language is a form of communication, but not all forms of communication are language. I'm going to repeat this. Language is a form of communication. So while I'm speaking now, I'm communicating with you, although of course we're not communicating simultaneously, we're not communicating at the same time, but in the end you are going to listen to me, and you are going to respond to me in one way or another. So it is a form of communication. On the other hand, communication is not necessarily done by just language. Communication can be done by other means, such as signs, which we have now on this slide. Okay. Now let's move to the next pair we have today, which is signal versus meaning. So, as you can see on this diagram, we have language in the center. We have language in the center. On the right we have signal, and on the left we have meaning. What language is all about? It is about signal and meaning. For every item we have in this universe, there is a signal and there is meaning. There is meaning, and there is one word for it. For example, this item is a bottle. The signal for it is the word bottle, and the meaning is this item, bottle. All right. So let's look at the example we have in the slide. We have the signal horse, as we can see in the phonemic transcription, horse. So this is the signal for the word. What does it mean? It means the horse, which we can see its image now. We can see the image of the horse. What we have in between is language. So language combines both signal and meaning. It combines the word and its meaning. For the horse, there are two things: signal, which is the word horse, and horse, which is the real horse, the one you can find in the wild or in the zoo or perhaps in the farm. So it refers to the animal itself, the horse, and the signal refers to the word horse. Okay. Now let's move on to linguistic creativity. Of course, language is creative. Animals can communicate using just shouts, like monkeys, other animals, cats, perhaps lions, tigers. They have their own way of communication, but it is not creative. Parrots, as you know, parrots, they can speak, but they are not creative. They just memorize some short phrases and some words, but they cannot produce full sentences. They cannot communicate with you. If you bring a parrot in front of you, he might, or the parrot, we can say it, not he. The parrot does not communicate with you linguistically. It might just repeat some random phrases without any intelligent communication. But for humans, language is creative. And here we have a diagram or an image or an illustration for linguistic creativity in humans, or in human language. So here we have an illustration which shows that with limited grammatical rules, as you know, grammatical rules are limited. We have a limited number of grammatical rules. And of course we have a limited number of vocabulary items. If you can count the vocabulary items of one language, they can be roughly between 500,000 words or so, but not more than that. We have, at the end, we have a limited number of vocabulary items. And of course we have a limited number of phonemes. We have a mistake here which I will correct. We have a limited number of phonemes. Okay? So we have a limited number of phonemes. We have a limited number of phonemes, we have a limited number of grammatical rules, and we have a limited number of vocabulary items. With these limited items, with these limited consequence of language, we are able to create unlimited number of linguistic utterances. Okay, so we have, as we can see here, we have a funnel. This just shows you, the funnel shows you that with these limited things we can create unlimited utterances, unlimited sentences, unlimited linguistic items. So with just limited number of phonemes, limited number of vocabulary items, limited number of grammatical rules, we can create unlimited number of linguistic utterances. And we should be thankful to Allah for this, because our language is creative. We are able to communicate, and we don't even have the time just to think about this grace. Okay? Now let's move on to prescriptive versus descriptive grammar. There are two types of grammar. The first is prescriptive, the second is descriptive. Okay, what is the difference between these two? If you go to a doctor, he gives you a prescription. The prescription cannot be changed, it is fixed. If you go to the pharmacy, they just give you what is written in the prescription. So the same goes with the prescriptive grammars. They provide a prescription for grammar. That is how language should be used. So how language, for example, how English should be used. They are not tolerant with people's use, including the native speakers' use of language. They are not tolerant with this. They just tell you that, for example, English should be used so and so. They are not tolerant with variations or linguistic variation. So here we see an illustration for prescriptive grammar. People who teach language are interested in teaching a standardized use of language, the form of language that is accepted in academic and business circles. So in this type of grammar, the prescriptive, we are dealing with an illustration or with a prescription of how language should be used. On the other hand, descriptive grammar describes how a certain language is actually used by its native speakers. So you see in grammar books, you see that language is described, is prescribed rather than described. It is prescribed. They tell you in order to create a sentence in English you have to have a subject, you have to have an object, you have to have a verb in between, etc. But when you, for example, when you watch a movie, you find that the language you have studied is used a bit differently to the language you have studied. So descriptive grammar describes how a certain language is actually used by its native speakers. For example, in prescriptive grammar, they tell you that you should use I and Nasser went to Dammam rather than me, because me is the object pronoun, not the subject pronoun. And here we have subject pronoun, we have an object pronoun used instead of an object pronoun. We have an object pronoun used instead of a subject pronoun. So we have me instead of I, which should be used in the prescriptive grammar. A prescriptive grammarian will tell you that you should say I and Nasser rather than me and Nasser. But when you observe native speakers, you will find that it is widely common that they use such terms. They use me and Nasser went to Dammam, for example. Native speakers of English can say me and Peter went to the cinema. So this form or this type of sentences, or the use of such pronouns and with this particular sentence, is commonly used by native speakers. So such sentence, which we have here in green, me and Nasser went to Dammam, is accepted by a descriptive grammarian. Why? Because it is used by native speakers. It is commonly used. But a prescriptive grammarian will tell you that this sentence is wrong. So here we have two types of grammar: prescriptive grammar and descriptive grammar. Normally, teachers are interested in prescriptive grammar. So teachers, English teachers for example, are interested in teaching their students how language should be used. But linguists, on the other hand, are interested in describing how language is actually used. There is no, we have two types of grammar, which I've shown here. None of them is wrong. They are just two forms of language. Don't take it as this. Don't take this as prescriptive grammars are wrong and descriptives are... No. We have two types of grammar. None of them is wrong. They're just two types. Okay? The last pair we have for today's lecture is linguistic competence versus linguistic performance. Here we have two terms, linguistic competence and linguistic performance. Let's start with the first one, linguistic competence. It can be defined, linguistic competence can be defined as the linguistic knowledge that provides a system for pairing sound and meaning. If you can remember, we have here we have sound, the sound, horse, and meaning. So linguistic competence provides you with a system for knowing. It provides you with a system for knowing the how to link these two things, how to link sound and meaning. It is the knowledge of language. So linguistic competence is the actual knowledge of language. You know how language is used. You know how a certain sound is linked to its meaning. You know how, for example, how to link the word book to the actual book which you can find, or to the physical book. You know that the word door means the door which in which you get through to a certain room. So linguistic competence is the knowledge, is the linguistic knowledge that provides a system for pairing sound and meaning. That is the ability of linking words with their meanings. So by being linguistically competent, you are able, you know how to use the language, how to link the sound to its meaning, how to link the meaning of a certain word, what you find in the dictionary, to what we find in the real life. Okay, this is called linguistic competence. The ability to link what we find in the dictionary to what is available in the real life. So this is our first term, which is linguistic competence. And we have linguistic performance. So competence is the knowledge. Performance is how you perform this knowledge. So linguistic performance is the use of such knowledge, that is linguistic competence, in the actual processing of sentences. So now you have the knowledge, you know what does this word mean, and you know what does the other word mean, but how are you going to perform this knowledge which you have in the head? How are you going to perform this knowledge in real life? How are you going to create sentences? This is called performance. Here we have a difference between, which is stemming from this distinction, performance and competence. We have a distinction which stems from this distinction, which is error versus mistake. As a student, even native speakers do, they make mistakes while they speak. So for example, you wanted to create a sentence. For example, I was hungry. Right? I was hungry. You know that you know that the sentence "I was hungry" is the correct sentence. This is competence. Okay? This is competence. This is inside your head. You know that it is right. But when it comes to performance, when it comes to the actual production, sometimes you produce it with a certain mistake. For example, I were hungry. This is a mistake which is not resulting from lack of knowledge. You know that the correct term is I was rather than I were. But as a mistake, as you speak, you made this mistake. So this is called mistake. The other type of misuse of language the other type of misuse of language is called errors because it involves lack of knowledge. Sometimes you make a mistake not because you know how to produce the sentence, but in one way or another you produce this in a wrong way. You made the error, you had the misuse of language as a result of your lack of knowledge, lack of competence. So here we have two types. The first is error, which results from lack of knowledge. So while speaking, while writing, your misuse of language can either be errors or mistakes. If this misuse of language is resulting from lack of knowledge, it is called error. Why? Because you don't have linguistic competence. You don't know how to use the language. If the misuse of language is resulting from not just from lack of knowledge, but in one way or another you produce the wrong sentence, this is called a mistake. Native speakers, mostly native speakers, make linguistic mistakes, but not linguistic errors, because they are competent of the language, they are fully competent of the language. On the other hand, non-native speakers, students, and non-native speakers like me and you, make errors while they speak, while they write, because they have some lack of knowledge, and this is variant. Some people have a huge lack of knowledge, and some people have a slight lack of knowledge. This lack of knowledge results errors. Mistakes just results from the misuse of language. So by this we come up to the end of today's lecture. If you have any questions, I hope everything is clear. If not, you are more than welcome to ask me, either in the website. We have a discussion forum, and I assume most of you know that you can communicate with your instructor using the forum. And of course, you can, if you prefer, you can send me, if you have any question, you can send me an email to the email you can see now on the slide. This is my email. Please don't hesitate if you have any question. If you need more clarification, if you just have any question, just ask me, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And thank you.